Yeah, I just want to talk quickly about something that I think a lot of us are seeing. And, what very often happens in a Republican administration in the United States, particularly since George W. Bush and going before that to Reagan and Nixon. And that's that, you know, a lot of the times when these right wing governments come into power, especially, with Trump, it's the most egregious example. They're far more comfortable, politically, kind of sniping from the sidelines, complaining about the government's too big and the gay people have too many rights or trans people have too many rights or, the United States is not a Christian nation and white people are losing power. And we see the same thing where I live in Canada, a very, very similar kind of political movement. But that political movement, as we've seen all around the world, when it actually gets power, it really has no idea what to do with it. And frequently, it runs up debt, has really hard time passing legislation, gets mired in, inner scene squabbles where some faction of the one right-wing faction will fight against some other right-wing faction. And eventually the people get fed up, vote them out, and vote in a more kind of center-left government. And we see it happen around the world over and over and over again. We're seeing absolutely the same thing happening right now with the second Trump term. We're already, a year into the term. Things have largely fallen apart for Trump. The centerpieces of his legislative agenda are all deeply unpopular. The kind of promises that were made about the economy or about immigration or Ukraine or, you can go down the list, a host of things, tariffs, haven't come to pass. In fact, the opposite. He's made things materially and objectively worse in all those areas. So what that ends up doing is the same thing that happens every time, a group like that becomes the power, is it pushes people to the left. We've seen that over and over again. Saw it most recently in the U.S. when during the Black Lives Matter protest and George Floyd's killing. The center of the U.S. gets pushed further and further to the left, and that's exactly what's going to happen in the United States. It's already happening. And by the end of Trump's term, should he survive to the end, he's obviously not in great health, but should he survive to the end, what they're going to be confronted with is essentially a Republican Party that's poison, that, independents have turned away from, Democrats can't trust, and increasingly, very alarmingly for the Republicans, either Republicans, a small sliver of Republicans are rejecting the party, but more than before, or they simply don't trust the Republican Party to enact their extremist values, and they stay home. I think, in some ways that's encouraging that this kind of craziness will come to an end and there'll be a backlash against it. But at the same time, what's not encouraging about it is that we're kind of stuck in this cycle. Almost every country on Earth that is still democratic is stuck in this kind of constant pendular swinging back and forth between left and right, which was on its face would seem to promote balance, but in reality just leads to kind of stasis where nothing ever happens because no government is able to undo the work done by the previous government within 4 years or 5 years. So we just kind of seesaw back and forth between these extremes, and nothing significant or real ends up really being done. So yeah, that's the unfortunate part of the political system in most democracies right now. But we'll save that problem for a future date. First things first is getting rid of the administration that's in power right now in the United States. And then second part of that is showing proof and a track record that center left to more left wing governments can actually get things done, and that's maybe a topic for another day.